you so that you are aware that what can come out in the past papers. So this is important for you to be aware of. So that you know that when you do this case study, whatever is it, also it's case, there will be an exhibit that has to come out, and you need to know how to handle the exhibit. The most recent paper is this one, SBL 24, 25, September, December. Okay, you can see this one. We look at this one, and then we look at so you can look at this one. What are the papers we can look at? We can look at this paper. September, December 24, March, June 24, September, December 23. So we look at these three sittings as a basis of understanding the exhibit first. So look at this one first. Have you seen this paper before? This is the Biago company, and you look at the exhibit and the requirement that came out. So it doesn't matter what the company information was. If you look at the company information, the company information does not run too far from how the information was presented in this case study. Also, if you look at the information, you got financial information, non-financial information. Here they put Biago's KPI. Then they put Biago's website extract. So website extract is still there. Okay. And then you got the whole company and what technology they are using and what services they are offered. Here they tell you about the company, and then the manufacturing sales process and the information system used. Then they give you the same type of things here. The overview, market, what is the market information, KPI, and so forth. Here also same thing. They give you some market information and industry body challenges and so forth. Okay, so they almost give the same type of information in one sense. Okay, so a lot of people started to like forecast, oh, this can come out, that can come out, this can come out, and they looked at the risk register and said, oh, this is a lot of risk, we may have a lot of risk question. And then they looked at the value statement and say, oh, this is a lot of committed values, so we have to consider committed values. They looked at the KPI, say maybe you have to interpret KPI. So a lot of people started to forecast and say a lot of things about the paper, saying that this can come out, that can come out. Then when you went to the final exam day, okay, what happened? Task 1. What did task 1 ask? Okay, have a look at it. Suddenly they ask you a portfolio of services. Prepare a report which assess the current service portfolio. And then you look at the portfolio, they suddenly give you portfolio information. They give you data about the thing. So this is what they gave in the last exam. What is the first thing they gave you? They gave one exhibit was okay. That was one of the questions that came out. This is the first question that came out. That is the first exhibit. They give you portfolio information. Okay. Once you're done with that question, see the task, 24 marks. They just ask you to prepare. Then they said analysis information. Then after that, the next one, you go to the next task. Task 2, 38 marks. Proposal for food delivery. This is where they gave you a proposal. This is a proposal about some kind of action that the company wants to do. What are the investment needed and the aims and objectives, and they give you quite a lot of data inside here. So the information they gave you was what's the requirement? Okay, have a look at the requirement. From here, based on this, the task 2 was specifically to ask you to do what? Prepare a report for CFO which evaluate how the value created from the food delivery proposal would be reported in the integrated reporting. Nothing to do with the evaluation, not FAS and all that. So proposal for new business, then they ask you how this So what happened was, a lot of students who went for this exam, they saw the word proposal for new business, they stopped reading the requirement because they already prepared feasibility, acceptability, suitability. That was not what the question asked you for. Okay, then Prepare an appendix for the report of CFO which recommends with reason for KPI that will be useful for the son. So again, they ask, so there's nothing you could have done to actually think about what was this. You see, it's a proposal for new business. You wouldn't have been able to catch anything from the pre-scene. Does that make sense? You wouldn't have been able to catch anything from the pre-scene for that case in terms of this. But you could say, remember, you could say, if you look at this part, there was some information on some KPIs here. So you may want to consider the relevant KPI, but this is a new business. So you need to consider whether the KPI can be the same KPI or not. And some of this is a proposed food delivery service and not the same as their transport business. So you got to be careful with the KPI being selected. So, and some of the keyword, this is for non-financial KPI. Okay, that was this part. Okay, look at the next question. Task 3. Okay, so recent cyber attack and cloud service provider impacted many businesses through Viago has now been affected. Prepare a presentation like accompanying notes which assess benefit and risk of Viago using cloud, and draft an email response to CFO which evaluate the extent to which disruptive technology highlighted by CEO can impact Viago. So here, the proposal here, have a look at it. One was exhibit is what? So you can see there is a cyber attack news block, and then based on the cyber attack news block, the task is slide presentation which assess benefit and risk of cloud technology. So completely different. Email from CEO. What does the email from CEO say? Here's a disruptive technology. They talk about three things: driverless autonomous vehicle, Internet of Things. Now pay attention to this. You go to the pre-scene. They gave you technology. Yeah, driverless autonomic electric car was the latest development. So this one was one of the things that kind of repeating. Can see now. One of it is driverless IoT. IoT was not inside here. Can see IoT was not one of the items inside here. That one come from this one. But you can see they gave the process, no process question. They gave the TNC driver, nothing come out. So there are a lot of things that they can give, and something might come out, something might not come out. So this is where you need to be clear that what you think can come out or what you prepare to come out may not be the thing that come out. So here they gave you exhibit is email. Done. So what did the exam question ask you after you study everything? They ask you disruptive technology impact. They ask you a bit of cloud computing for this company, KPI, integrated reporting, portfolio. That is the only thing they ask in this September, December 2024 question. So it doesn't matter how well you know the case study. The case study give you parameter for the question to be asked. Parameter. It does not tell you what is coming out because you have to wait for the exhibit. We go out of this one. You look at March, June 2024. So again, you want to see the pattern of exhibits that was coming out so that you are aware that when you go to the exam, what might be the thing they might ask you and what are the information they might present to you. So here, right, you got Picaro Vet Services. Now, again, when we went through this case study, there are a lot of things that we kind of like talked about, like same thing, same thing. This one a bit closer to what you see, okay, a bit closer, but the sequencing a bit off. There's only 10 pages of information. Now, first transcript is what? You got board minutes, okay, and board minutes are a common way for something to be provided to you. And from the board minutes, they ask you task 1. New CEO has asked you for strategy. Business development is proposing a JV. CEO wants to understand more about JV. Prepare briefing note for BD directors which assess the impact of joint venture of previous brand and how much its service can deliver, and recommend whether franchise agreement will be better than joint venture. Then here, prepare 2 slides, how technology development could deliver growth for PBS and the drawback for PBS, including ethical issue for adopting such technology. So, this one, you can see exhibit was what? Now, if you look at the exhibit itself, the board minute itself, they do talk about what each view is. Now, board minutes, remember, there are view of people involved. Okay, you must know whose view. Then they ask you plus here. What is the question they ask you? Whether JV or franchise. Then they ask you again from JV franchise. The next question they ask you is what? JV Medical is proposing investment in the investment in new technology. Has provided you the article with PetVet. So you can see a PetVet article coming out. Technology. Okay, these are the things that you can see. There is impact communication, impact on medicine, and so forth, and CSR. And then ask you how technology development could deliver growth for PBS and how drawback of this ethical issues here. So here, right, that's the question that you got. So again, article, how does it help growth? Okay, when you answer the question of growth, you must see where the company is currently trying to grow, which area they got problem and all that. So it is important for you to think about when an article say how it helped the company, the question asks you how it helps the company grow. You need to know the case where this technology will solve the problem. So this is where the technology can help solve the problem, but you also need to know the characteristic and also the behavior of this technology. How you know the characteristic and behavior? You read the article. From then you try to match with where the company is trying to grow and where you relate to the case. So this is the question over there. Let's move on. So task 2, so you see we already finished these 2 technical articles or these 2 exhibit. Last board meeting, HR proposed, at the last board meeting, HR proposed PBS strategic direction should move from being profit focused to being socially focused. I believe CSR is important. Prepare a briefing note for HR director which assess how CSR responsibility could impact previous key stakeholder where appropriate. This will enable growth in the market. Now pay attention to this. The CSR one, okay, you can see has directed to the CSR section of PetVet journal. So it's still referring to the same journal. How corporate social responsibility strategy could impact previous stakeholder, and where appropriate, how this will enable growth in the market. So this one, so this one be careful. How this will enable growth in market share, whereas the earlier question was asking you how it helps grow the business. So different business you can go into. That's task 2. Okay, look at the task 3. Strategies adopted by following discussion on netboard will be delivered as a project. Junior human resource assistant draft a job description for project management. So suddenly they give you a job description for project manager. And the question asks you for critically evaluate project manager's job description. Now, when you want to critically evaluate a job description, of course, it's important to know the role of project management and whether all the roles have been taken over, and the roles of project sponsor and the roles of project team. You must know these 3 things to answer this question. So if you don't know, then you have a knowledge gap, and then you might not be able to critically evaluate the job description. Anyhow, you can still critically evaluate the job description and get some marks from your common sense, but not so reliable. So they gave the job description. Last one, the last thing you're looking at, let me see first. So we're done with this case. Task 3. CFO received internal audit report. Credit control function is centralized. The CFO is asked assistance in preparing report. Assess implication of internal control weakness. Recommend appropriate control to mitigate this weakness. That's all. So here, okay, done. So that's basically the exam question. So can you prepare for this question? Can you prepare for this question? No, you cannot prepare for this question. But can you have theory to help you prepare this question? Can you have some theory to help you prepare this question? Yes, you can have some background theory, like what are the internal controls. You should know the internal controls are spam soap. Then you should know for SAF, you should know about Mr. Eric. So these are things you should know to help you answer this question. If you don't recall this, you can probably write something, but it'll be less reliable. This is the main thing you should be aware of. Okay, so you can see knowing the case study is nice, but you should know how to relate to the theory that comes out. Okay, theory, what area they're testing. Remember, they only test about 5 to 6 parts from your whole note. From everything you study, they only test 5 to 6 idea, and the amount you study is about like maybe 60 ideas or something, but only 5 to 6 get hit. So that's the tricky part of this paper, that you have to, you cannot say like, I know what's coming out. There is no way you will know what's coming out, because the examiner has many exhibits, many issues coming out. That being said and done, everything they give is always inside the exhibit. Majority. So remember, 90% 90% of the answer come from the exhibit, 10% might come from the case study. That is the maximum that you will get. Okay, now that you know how the exhibit works, okay, let's look at this case first, and I'm going to run through a few ideas. Okay, I've already read through this case, so I'm not going to go through this case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to touch base with the material you should know already, which is called knowledge. So let's just make sure your knowledge for the area is okay. Now, there is knowledge that you should be aware of. And I'm going to discuss whether or not it can be tested. Of course, any knowledge we talk about has high chance of being tested. I want to highlight that to you. And the knowledge you should be aware of, I'm going to use my set of notes. Okay, so what you're going to do is we're going to just think about the knowledge that you might have to discuss about in the exam. Okay, the first part, professional. Okay, what will you get in the professional part? You will probably, I repeat that, probably okay, you might be given an exhibit. Pay attention, you might be given an exhibit where there is some be actions. So I'm going to talk about the exhibit. So this is knowledge. So you might have, for example, copy fussy, which is from this part. Remember, you don't need to know anything. You just need to know the copy and fussy. These are the main one. Okay, exhibit possible is probably going to be about right. So the knowledge they may want to test is copy fussy. The exhibit possible is they might give you information about the CEO, FD, or other director, or it might be how minutes of the board meeting. Now, this has come out before in Railco, where they give you the information about the board minutes. Then they ask you to discuss whether the CEO or CEO is performing his fiduciary duties or not. Okay, that's one exam question that might come out for this area. Now, another area that might come out is this idea called CPD. Why CPD? Because, well, the board of directors are old and they're not innovative and they're very risk averse. So, CPD, so if you look at the note, this is kind of important, okay? And then this one is site important, like they have to plan and take action and results and reflect. So I'll call that PAR. Plan, action, result, reflection. Okay, that's something you should be aware of. Done, that's it. Okay, now the next one you look at is this idea of corporate governance. There's a lot of idea for corporate governance. I'm going to tell you which one you should be fully aware of. There's a lot here. Okay, I'm going to tell you there's a lot here. Do you need to know everything for this case study? No, you don't need to know everything for this case study. But I do suspect certain knowledge is important for you to carry forward in the exam. Okay, certain knowledge is needed. So up to here, you can see this is many pages. It stops at page number 18. Okay, stops in page number 18. Now, if you look at the first part, knowledge that you should know. So here, the way I look at it, there could be an issue with okay, IPAIR for this, I hope you can still remember what it is. The nomination committee role and what do they do? NED role, strict. These are all ideas that are kind of in the background knowledge, may be tested in the exam, where they give you a governance memo saying about the problems with the company's board of director because they are not taking risks. They're all old people, 20 years there already. So you may be requiring to criticize the situation where there is not enough independent director. Remember, if all the directors are 20 years, they're not considered independent. So the lack of independence is one of the issues. So one of the things you may talk about is lack of independence. So you do need to be aware of lack of independence, lack of board diversity, how it impacts innovation. The company may not be innovating because of the board of director itself. So if you don't have diversity, there's not enough innovation. Now remember, innovation is actually one of the IPAIR for GIS words. So you go back, you see the word IPAIR for GIS got the word innovation. Can see not? You can also say that their judgment got problem. Their judgment got problem. Their independence got problem. Okay, the board of directors currently got problem in independence, judgment, innovation. Okay, those are the areas where I think you can discuss the issue, and maybe the lack of accountability on their performance. These are all the areas you can talk about. Don't worry about how sound governance avoid failure. Don't worry about the theories of governance, agent theory, transaction, all that don't come out. Stakeholder theory, yeah, possible. right, you do need to know how to manage your stakeholders. Are we okay in this part? So you do have to identify their power and their interests, who they are, what's their claim, based on the blog post and what is informed here. Now, of course, you can already identify who are the stakeholders involved in the business, but you need to be careful when you do this identification. The matter of interest is based on the blog, the matter of interest. So not everybody interested in the same matter. Right now, when I do who's interested in the company, everybody is interested in the company. But when there is a matter in hand, might be narrower stakeholders. So this is why you must understand this issue of stakeholders. So there is a lot of theories here. Okay, you do need to pick up Mendel law if it comes out. I don't think the examiner goes into narrow, primary, active, passive. This one, the examiner won't go into it actually. So Mendelo is that. Okay. This one, charity, PLC, don't worry. SOX, don't worry. OECD, don't worry. ICGN, okay. You may be asked to comment on the So what are the headers? Headers, make sure you know the headers, board role. Okay, then you have leadership and independence. Then you have composition and appointment, reporting and audit. Then you have risk oversight. You might have something to do with remuneration. And then you have corporate culture. And the last one is shareholder rights. Okay. So you may need to think about these words when you are asked to evaluate the corporate governance. You go like, put header, board responsibility, okay, leadership. Just put the headers inside and then you talk about one by one. Okay. Okay, when you read the question, you need to know. I'm already telling you what they will tell you already. So if you get corporate governance and ethics, this is the scope they can give you. But when they do this, you do need to know which one they are asking. So you need to know the story about the company. If they tell you something specific, you may have to highlight that area specifically. Like for example, if they're talking about the board current composition, then it's nomination committee and the need to hire new directors. They talk about generally the board is not very effective, then you use the ICGN header and talk about the issues of how to improve the board and where the problem come from. Then you got the other things. So don't forget there is something called so that's this. Okay, I'm already done with this part. Ownership, don't worry. Two-tier board, not very critical. I don't think they can ask you about two-tier board, about establishing two-tier. It's possible, make a note, it's possible they can ask you about two-tier board. Let me just go through to the point here. So you might have to consider whether or not they have to create a two-tier board or not. So it's possible a two-tier board might come out. Just sidebar discussion on two-tier board. If you talk about two-tier boards, remember it's just a split and then creating two boards, and then you must understand what are the two boards that they are doing. The note that you see here is for the Japanese board. It's not the same as the boards that you're going to see in this case study. Board roles, board meetings, chairman role, CEO role, possible question comes out. So when we say this one, here you are looking at what the chairman should do, what the CEO should do, and whether or not they are doing that work or not. If they're not doing that work, then you probably have to say that there is a need for change of chairman, or there's a need for change of CEO. This is the end outcome. End outcome is change or keep the chairman or CEO. This is what you might get as a question. Okay. Then of course NED, the role of NED quite important. I already said that, the role of NED. Where did I put the role? There, the role of NED is kind of important. That's why I put the word straight here already. Role. Okay. And the fact that they have to be independent is also here. Okay, the independence might be a questionable. Okay, then you got legal issues. Okay, there might be some legal for this paper. So you might have to talk about the idea of removal. So you must know what is the retirement by rotation. Right. The retirement by rotation might be a good idea to discuss in this question, because most of the directors are there for 20 years. Maybe it's time to retire them by rotation. That's this part over here, retirement by rotation. I think that is kind of important. I think the other one is maybe fiduciary duties, but I think the rest of it are so. Okay. Now, then you got the nomination committee, the role. Okay, this one, remember, nominate, succession, diversity, and so forth. And you got insider and outsider nomination. Just remember, you got insider, outsider nomination. So here, okay. Now let's move on to the next part. Insider, outsider director also possible. I would suggest you may have to consider this part. So again, You might get an ad review, long time never come out already, whereby they ask you to pick the person to become a director, NED or something, new NED being recruited to manage the risk or something like that. So it might be something specific, someone who's coming in specifically for one of the committee. Just be careful with that, all right? Okay, that covers this idea here. Okay, remuneration committee. I hope you know the items of remuneration committee. Not that I think it will come out. Do remember, basic, BIK, pension, bonus, share option. So you got basic pay, you got BIK, you got pensions, and one more you might have is something called options. So you may have to discuss which one is suitable for the company directors. It's possible that you get something like this. Okay, moving on. We're coming to this concept called CSR. What you should know about CSR. Okay, CSR, you do need to know this idea of okay, here when you talk about CSR, the outcome about CSR is a bit tricky based on the exam question. In fact, this one you just have general knowledge only. You can't do much with this. The examiner doesn't test this specifically. However, this PEEL might be useful model for you to think about. PEEL. Okay, that's this part about this idea. Don't worry about Tucker. Don't worry about AAA. Don't worry about ethical decision making. When it comes to JSW responsibility stance, don't worry about it. Reporting, mandatory, voluntary reporting is a common idea. So here, value of reporting information, voluntary reporting is, should the company prepare a sustainability report? Now discuss. So you discuss the benefit of the sustainability report, okay, and how to implement it better. So sustainability report there, this answer, these are usually the answer. The answer will always sit inside here. Got it? Sustainability itself, just remember the examiner can test you about environmental. Right. You may be asked to talk about the social footprint, environmental footprint of this question, and discuss whether there is a negative impact and how the company is solving the problem based on the issues. Then you might remember environmental auditing might be important idea for this question. Remember last sitting there was no questions from the P1 site for the sample. So this question had a higher chance of a P1 type information coming out. So here you got MMR. Remember MMR? M, matrix measurement reporting. Okay, matrix measurement reporting, quite important. Social audit, I'm not so worried about it. Environmental reporting, same. What's the benefit of environmental reporting? Quite important. Social accounting, so. Triple bottom line, so. ISO 14000, yes, just know how to achieve it. Outcome is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. So you need to go policy, legal obligation. After that, you got your policy, legal obligation, system, and then you also have your internal audit, and then publish, and then verify. Okay, those are the 6 steps you might get. That's ISO 14000. Same thing with EMAS. Okay, EMAS is down here. EMAS also you got some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps also. Okay, that covers this part. Let's move on to the idea of integrated reporting. As you can see, the examiner has tested integrated reporting. So notice that this is an area where the examiner can test for this paper. IR did come out recently. Right, that's basically what you're looking at. So integrated reporting possible. Okay, I remember integrated reporting possible. Meetings no, trade union no, company secretary no, government no, fraud detection, yeah, fraud. You got attitude. You must have attitude, you must have pressure, and then the last one is going to be opportunity. So you might have to think about some opportunities. This one you have to discuss this one, and okay, those are things that you may be getting for that part. So this part, yeah, I think so, possible. Though I don't think this company will have to engage in any bribery as per sort. Doesn't look like they are in any need to bribe people to get business. The reason being is the nature of their business. Remember the nature of their business. Uh, Remember, what are they selling? They are selling shoes. So I don't think they have to bribe somebody to buy the shoes. They just have to sell the shoes. So I think bribery is not an issue, but fraud could be an issue for the company because of the level of wastage there. Okay. And if you look at the level of wastage there, I already told you there's a question called yeah, which has the same tendency for this type of situation. Okay. That's this one so far. So we have looked at this part already. Now, the other one you got internal controls. I can tell you internal controls is a big chapter. Quite a number of things can come out. Okay. Um, let's look at it. Internal control. Okay, internal control. Um, Here, remember, internal control part, you do need to know the that three you should know. Internal control system. Uh, I'm more looking at spam soap. Okay. You may also have to think about this one, RFAA. So the question for spam soap or this one might be related to what is going on inside here. The other area that might come out is the role and responsibility of internal auditor. So here you might need to talk about the need for internal auditor, which they already have. So you don't need to talk about this one. I would suspect more on the problems with internal auditor lack independence and what type of assignment that might be asked. So remember I left one here. Okay. Okay, that should cover that part. Okay, audit committee, what's their role and all that? What do they do, benefit? Okay, then you might be asked about information system. What are the quality of information system? So you may be asked for information on quality of information system. So you might recommend the type of work to be done, like maybe not doing value for money, but do system audit and all that. Now, how does it help the company is maybe reduce the risk of mistakes and also increase the reliability of the financial systems. That's the issue there. Now, the black, Gluck and Goodman case study that I told you to look at is one of the case study where the FD was the one saying to that they don't need internal auditor to check on everything because they check the accounting system enough, no need to check the operational system. So this is one of the gap that came out, and you have to explain the problem because of this. Right, those are the problems that you can see there. You may be asked to talk about the characteristics of information that you can get from the board. Okay, so there is one question called characteristic. So the chairman could request to evaluate whether the board has enough information. So the answer that you're using is going to come from here. Just note that reliable, relevant is a characteristic of the quality of the information, and why you need to have this long-term information, reliable information. Okay, that covers that part. Any questions up to this juncture?